Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the DWISS A1-Blue. This watch is available from DWISS.com for €1,429. DWISS are a well-established microbrand. They were founded in 2011 in Lugano in Switzerland. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a watch box which is housed inside this outer black cardboard box. On the lid we have the DWISS shield emblem and DWISS logo in silver, so one removes the lid, which is a snug fit to the base. And inside we have the watch box, which I'll take out and show you. Inside the base of the outer cardboard box there's a foam cutout panel, and the watch box is a snug fit inside it, so it does a good job of preventing the watch box moving around in shipping and the watch getting damaged. So black plastic watch box which is vinyl or PU leather coated, and as you can see it's matte black, so it has a grained finish which gives the impression of genuine leather, but it is actually made from vinyl or PU leather. Flawless stitching around the perimeter and good attention to detail, because in the top right corner we have the DWISS shield emblem embossed. The strap is secured by a stainless steel popper which is black plated and both halves open freely. Good attention to detail because we have the DWISS shield emblem and DWISS logo in silver, both on the left and the right hand portions, as you can see. Centre section is also fully upholstered with black velour fabric to good standard, and in the centre the watch sits upon a padded pillow cushion which is also black velour fabric upholstered to good standard. It's a snug fit inside the centre of the watch box. I like the way it folds open and closed, snaps shut with a nice positive click, very aesthetically pleasing. DWISS deserve credit here because they could have taken the less expensive default option of just using a cardboard or plastic watch box, but this plastic watch box, which is vinyl PU leather coated, is high quality, and immediately one gets the impression that the DWISS A1-Blue is a high quality Swiss made piece. So with regards to the items that come with the piece, they come in this cork wallet, which again is debossed with a DWISS shield and also DWISS logo on the front. There's an elasticated strap which secures it, so one opens the wallet and inside we have three items. In the centre we have a 1.2mm jeweler's screwdriver, and we also have two plastic cards which I'll take out and show you. So this card is effectively the owner's instruction manual, and it details the operation of the movement use, which is the legibility caliber LJP G100 automatic, sawing grade. In the lower right corner we have a QR code which can be scanned with an Android or iPhone to download the owner's instruction manual with clear concise diagrams and instructions in English. On the reverse there's a second QR code, and that can be scanned in order to register your piece with DWISS.com, and this will activate the 2-year international warranty from the date of purchase. Again, I want to give due credit to DWISS here because we are looking at a mid-tier piece. Mid-tier is €500 to €5,000. This is €1,429 respectively. The industry standard for mid-tier pieces between those price points is 2 years of international warranty, and this does indeed come with it. So this is innovative, and as an alternative to a conventional warranty card with the terms and conditions printed on it, one simply scans the QR code to download the terms and conditions, register your piece. And to clarify, this version, the A1-Blue, is a limited edition of 500 numbered pieces, and I'll show you the unique serial number engraved into the case back. So, excellent. Now, I'll show you the other card. So this is a personal message from the owner of DWISS, Rafael Miranda, and he gives an introduction to the brand, and also there's a contact email should you wish to make a warranty claim, rafael@dwiss.com. Also their social media tag @DWISSWatch should you wish to share images of your piece on social media. And on the reverse it details the history of the brand since their foundation in 2011 in Lugano in Switzerland, and also it details that they have won 27 awards for their watches, which is very impressive. So nice to get this introduction of the brand and also the brand owner, Rafael Miranda. So lastly, one also gets this 1.2mm flathead jeweler's screwdriver. So hardened tool steel tip, which is precision ground. It's replaceable in case it becomes damaged or blunt. Mild steel, and it's nickel plated. Knurled shank. Now it does visually look like solid stainless steel, but it's actually mild steel which is nickel plated. Quality of the knurling is good. Rotating head, which is also knurled. Large chamfer, so that deletes the tips of the knurling, so it's good, doesn't feel sharp. This fits into the palm of the hand well, and one can get good purchase with one's index finger and thumb on the knurled shank in order to rotate the hardened tool steel tip precisely for withdrawing the 1.2mm screw pins from the integrated bracelet and also screwing them back in. Excellent to get that included. So good presentation, 2-year international warranty is good, and also to get the jeweler's screwdriver included. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 40mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 45.5mm, a thickness of 10.8mm, and an internal lug width on the integrated bracelet of 18.3mm. The bracelet is flared and tapered, so the bracelet is actually wider than the 18.3mm internal lug width. At its widest point, at the integrated lugs, the bracelet is 24.3mm and it tapers down to 20mm at the 2-button push butterfly clasp. The butterfly clasp is signed to a high standard with high definition engraving, both with a DWISS shield emblem and also DWISS logo. Very high definition engraving, it's sharp and crisp, I like it. 2-button push triggers are recessed on the left and the right hand flanks, flawless mirror polishing to the buttons on the left and right hand flanks, and I like that they don't project too far from the flanks. Butterfly clasp opens freely and it's not handed. You can close the left or the right hand portion first or last. It doesn't overlap, which is good, and I like the proportions and the finishing of it. So with regards to the rest of the specification, we have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished baton handset. So this piece uses a tapisserie dial, rather like the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. The tapisserie dial gives a nice textured finish in blue, and it contrasts very well because we have blocks of superluminova. The blocks of superluminova, rather than applied indices, are made from C1-X1BL superluminova, and on the hands, rather than looming the hands with 5 to 6 layers of superluminova, they've also applied blocks of C1-X1BL superluminova, which I'm looking forward to testing in the Lume test. So just bear with me, I'm going to move the minute hand out of the way of the date complication. Also, around the date window, they framed it with a block frame of C1-X1BL, which is good. What I like about the dial is the quality of the execution, the quality of the finishing, because usually dials like this, tapisserie dials, as used on the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, for example, they print the dial with white paint, as this is done with the white minute ticks on the chaptering, but the indices are applied or alternatively printed with Lume, for example BGW9 or C3. This uses blocks for the indices, which is good. But the other thing is the white minute ticks are printed with high definition printing. They're not too thick, they're not too blurry, but the minute ticks are clearly legible. The legibility of this dial is excellent. Now it's an asymmetrical dial because we have the date complication, but what I like about it is the framing, which is a block of C1-X1BL, as I've detailed, it's not too deep, it's not too thick. Often with date complications which have a rectangular frame around them and a textured dial like this tapisserie dial, the problem is the framing causes a permanent shadow because the aperture casts a shadow, and this reduces the legibility, the readability, the functionality of the date complication. This one doesn't have that problem. Now, one has to appreciate the tapisserie dial is textured, therefore it's thick. Also, the framing around it is also thick. So one would expect a black shadow to be cast on the date wheel, but this doesn't have it. As you can see, the white date wheel is clearly legible. Both the single and the double abric numerals, which are printed in high definition printing, the abric numerals are clearly legible. They're easy to read, so they've done a very good job of it, and it's something that one doesn't see in the mid-tier between 500 and 5,000 euro. Often the frames are too deep and too thick, and the shadow reduces, it diminishes the legibility. That's the point I'm making. Quality of the execution and finishing of the tapisserie dial is excellent. This tapisserie dial really does add interest, and they deserve credit here because they could have taken the less expensive default option of simply using a blue glossy enamel dial, or alternatively a matte dial which is textured, or alternatively just a sunray blue dial. This tapisserie dial really is high tier level. Nice textured finish to it, but the quality of the tapisserie grid formation is absolutely stellar. It's high definition and it's got a nice subtle sheen to it rather than just being a dull matte finish, so it does add interest to the dial. The tapisserie dial is something that DWISS do very well. Also, the blocks of C1-X1BL superluminova are correctly proportioned. They're not too large, but they do have a nice 3D effect, rather like applied indices, and they make a refreshing change from just using the default option of silver mirror polished applied indices, as one would expect. Proportions of the baton hands are correct. What I like about the handset is they are wide. This allows for large blocks of C1-X1BL superluminova to be applied, but the other benefit is the legibility, because the length of the baton minute hand is correct. It extends all the way to the indices and also to the minute ticks, so it's not too short. Also, the second hand is correctly proportioned because it extends all the way to the minute ticks on the chapter ring. The hour hand is also large enough, but there is a good difference between the length of the hour hand and the minute hand, so therefore one can immediately differentiate between the hour and minute hand. Often with baton hands, the hour and minute hands are often similar in length and proportion, the width. So it's more difficult to differentiate between which is the hour hand, which is the minute hand. One doesn't have that problem with this piece. What I like about the dial is it's not over-branded with unnecessary text and specification. Often mid-tier brands and mid-tier micro brands make the mistake between 500 and 5,000 euro price point is they over-brand the dial with unnecessary text and specification. The dial looks too busy, it looks too cluttered. This reduces the aesthetically pleasing factor of it. What I like about this is we simply have the DWISS shield emblem and DWISS logo at 12 o'clock, and that's perfectly balanced by 2 lines of text, model A1 and automatic, just the right amount of information. For example, they haven't printed a third line of text, such as the water resistance rating, 100 metres, which is negligible information for a daily wear piece. We're not looking at a dive piece. One doesn't need to see 100 metres on the dial. So this is good. Model A1 automatic is clean. Also, either side of the 6 o'clock index, we have Swiss made, and as I've detailed, DWISS were founded in 2011 and in Lugano in Switzerland. Their watches are Swiss made and they use Swiss made calibers. This uses a legibility caliber LJP G100 automatic soin grade, which of course is made in Switzerland. So they're right to print Swiss made either side of the index. So dial is clean. Tapisserie dial has a nice textured finish. AR coating is excellent. What I like about this piece is the Rehaut. The Rehaut is very slender, so they have fully optimised or fully maximised the benefits of the LJP G100 being a thin caliber. So to put this into perspective, they could have taken the less expensive default option of using the Sellita caliber SW200-1, the Soprod caliber P024, or the ETA caliber 2824-2, respectively. They would have been credible alternatives at this price point. However, the negative of the aforementioned calibers is they are thicker. The LJP G100 is thinner, and the benefit of that is it has a lower hand stack height on the cannon pinion, therefore the Rehauts can be reduced in depth. Benefit of that is twofold. It reduces the clearance between the sapphire crystal and the second hand mounted to the top of the cannon pinion, so therefore the sapphire crystal can sit closer to the handset and also the tapisserie dial and the date complication. This is beneficial because it improves legibility. So from a functionality purpose, it's better to have the sapphire crystal closer to the handset, closer to the dial to improve legibility. The other notable benefit is visually, it looks more aesthetically pleasing because when I tilt the piece at an oblique angle, it doesn't have the characteristic deeper Rehaut one sees with SW200-1 powered pieces, for example. So the Rehaut is very slender. This is one of the thinnest Rehauts. Now, one has to appreciate, we're not looking at a slim Rehaut on a 50-metre daily wear piece. It's a given. If this piece were only 50 metres, the sapphire crystal could be thinner, for example. But this is 100 metres, and therefore the sapphire crystal needs to be thicker in order to provide that amount of hermetic seal without cracking under pressure. So 100 metres is strong specification. Sapphire crystal is thick enough, but the Rehaut is still very slender, rather like a 50-metre piece. The sapphire crystal is very close to the second hand with minimal clearance. It actually looks like it's touching the second hand. That's how close it is. And this is what I like about this piece being made in Switzerland rather than being made in China. And it's something that DWISS do very good. The tolerances of this piece are very fine. They're very precise. The sapphire crystal is very close to the second hand on the cannon pinion. The Rehaut is very refined, it's very low profile, therefore the sapphire crystal sits close to the tapisserie dial. Legibility is fantastic. When you look at this piece straight on, the sapphire crystal looks invisible. That's how close it sits to the cannon pinion, the handset, and also the tapisserie dial and date complication. It actually looks like the sapphire crystal is invisible. The AR coating is stellar, the clarity of the sapphire crystal is stellar, the tapisserie dial definition is stellar. It's fantastic. So, rest of the specification. Flat, concentric CNC lathe tool machined bezel. Now, again, they deserve credit here because clearly one could say this octagonal case is Gerald Genta inspired. It does visually remind me of Gerald Genta pieces such as the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. That's a given. It's octagonal with 8 sides, but they've resisted the default option of using an octagonal bezel, because had they used an octagonal bezel as per the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, one would say, well, this is an homage of the Royal Oak, or one could say it's a clone or a copy of it. But they haven't. They've resisted that, and they've used a flat profile circular bezel versus an octagonal profile Genta style bezel. So that's good. They also made the correct decision by not using a domed bezel, because this has brutalist design to the octagonal case, and brutalist has angular profiles to the integrated bracelet lugs and also the case itself. And with brutalist design, flat surfaces are needed. Had they used a curved profile to the domed bezel, that of course would clash, because we've got an octagonal crown which complements the octagonal case and the brutalist integrated lugs, so this is good. Also, the grid formation to the tapisserie dial is angular. There's no curves on this piece. So had they used a domed bezel, of course it wouldn't match the design elements of this piece, having brutalist design or Gerald Genta inspired design. Flat profiling is correct for the bezel. So concentric CNC lathe machining has a beautiful luster to the top facet, but on the edge it's mirror polished, which does add interest, and it complements the mirror polished bevels on the edges, the transitions of the octagonal case. To add interest to the left hand flank, they've also engraved grooves, and they've beveled the top and the underside on the flanks, which is good. This does add some interest, and it breaks up the slab sides of the octagonal case. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. They've done a very good job of milling the slots or grooves in the left hand flank, and then they've deburred them with the large mirror polished bevels on the top and the lower edge of the flanks. Quality of the case finishing is stellar. Longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the top facet of it. That complements the integrated lugs, which are also longitudinally brushed satin finished. I like the mirror polished bevels on the top edge of the case. Also on the undercuts to the flanks, we have the same mirror polished bevel, which is large, it's deep. This visually looks aesthetically pleasing because it reduces the look of the slab sides. It looks nice and thin, but also it enhances comfort level and feel good factor, because often with integrated cases like this, they have a sharp crisp edge on the undercuts to the flanks. This diminishes comfort level and feel good factor, because the sharp crisp edge feels sharp, it scratches the wrist, but this is nice and smooth. So it feels like a very well finished case. Visually looks good, beautiful luster to every facet, and the concentric CNC lathe machining to the flat bezel complements the luster of the case. So let's look at the integrated bracelet in detail. So end links articulate freely, don't feel stiff or kink, that's the benefit. Doesn't have excess longitudinal, lateral, side to side, up and down play in any direction. Feels nice and tight. This is correct. Again, this is the benefit of this piece being made in Switzerland versus being made in China. Higher quality control level, build quality, quality control, materials and finishing as a result. I like the articulation. Feels good, feels smooth, but there's enough friction. It's not sloppy. Bracelet articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. It's fluid. Wraps around the wrist very well. It's very good. But it's not sloppy. They've got the balance correct, because it's not too loose. Often with integrated bracelets, even with screw pins, they feel too loose. There's too much slack, too much play. This one articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. That's the benefit. But yet, the screw pins mean it's tight. It's tighter than a push pin bracelet. So they've got the refinement there. Beautiful luster to the bracelet. So it has Y links as opposed to H links. And the Y links are finished to perfection. Beautiful luster, nice fine grained satin finishing. No sharp edge to the top edge or the low edge of the flanks, which is beneficial because it doesn't have any sharp edges which scratch the wrist, which is good. This enhances comfort level and feel good factor. Doesn't pull arm hairs, which is good. And I like how fluid it is. This is fantastic. Also, they've made the correct choice by using 1.2mm screw pins rather than the production cost-cutting measure of push pins, which is good. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, end link articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess longitudinal, lateral, side-side, up and down play. Interference friction fit is good. It's balanced, not too tight, not too stiff, but articulates freely. Plenty of articulation. Bracelet again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. It's fluid. Very well done. It's not sloppy, doesn't rattle, doesn't have excess play, longitudinal, lateral, side-side or up and down play. Again, no sharp edge to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks, doesn't feel sharp, doesn't scratch the wrist, doesn't pull arm hairs. Beautiful luster. What I like about it is, on the edges, they are mirror polished to perfection. On every single one of the Y links, they've done a fantastic job of finishing each of the individual Y links before assembling the bracelet. No sharp edges, no burrs, doesn't have sharp corners on the Y links. Mirror polishing to the centre section of the Y links is done to a flawless standard on every single one of the links. I'm just going to inspect the other side for continuity. Again, the centre section of the Y links is mirror polished. This is the kind of refinement one doesn't see on a Chinese made integrated bracelet piece. One does see it on mid-tier pieces which are Swiss made. They have better quality finishing to the links because, for example, to put this into perspective, often with low tier and mid tier microbrands, as a production cost cutting measure, this facet, this centre section, is simply left brush satin finished or simply just machined. They don't mirror polish it to deburr it and also make it more aesthetically pleasing, because strictly speaking it's not an area that you see. When the bracelet is on wrist, you can see this is how it looks, and one doesn't see that edge or that facet, that side of the Y-link. But if you look here, every single one of the Y-link centre sections, this side or this facet of it is mirror polished to an absolutely flawless standard. One doesn't see this on low tier pieces between €0 and €500. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. That mirror polishing on the centre section impresses me. So this bracelet visually looks good, feels good, but it's very well finished. The quality of the finishing on this is definitely mid-tier level, €500 to €5,000. We're not looking at a low tier bracelet here between €0 and €500. This is Swiss made. Excellent. So let's look at the clasp in detail. 2-button push butterfly clasp, both halves open freely. Solid mill 316L grade stainless steel internals, which are milled. As you can see, butterfly is symmetrical. 2-button push triggers are heavily sprung loaded, feel reliable and robust. No sharp edges. The mirror polishing to the top side, underside and flanks is stellar. Let's check the hinge pins. Left hand outer hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. That's the benefit. No play whatsoever. This is fantastic. Stellar. No lateral, side to side, up and down longitudinal play. This feels nice and tight. They've got the balance perfected because, again, it doesn't feel stiff. It's not too tight, but doesn't have play. It doesn't wobble. It's not sloppy. This is fantastic. Left hand inner hinge pin articulates freely. Doesn't feel stiff or kink. Doesn't have excess play. Fantastic. Right hand inner hinge pin articulates freely. Doesn't feel stiff or kink. Doesn't have excess play, nice and tight. Finally, right hand outer hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play. This is a pleasant surprise. So DWISS deserve full credit here. Mid-tier piece, €500 to €5,000, €1,429 respectively. This is an example to other mid-tier brands and other mid-tier microbrands of how to get it correct. Build quality, quality control, materials and finishing are all stellar. All 4 hinge pins, left hand outer, left hand inner, right hand outer, are perfected. They don't feel too stiff, but they don't kink, they don't have excess play, and above all else, the bracelet doesn't feel sloppy. It doesn't feel loose, doesn't have play like a Chinese made low tier piece. This is fantastic. Let's look at the underside to check the finishing. Again, underside of the butterfly clasp is mirror polished to the same flawless standard as the top side and the flanks. This enhances comfort level and feel good factor. Quality of the mirror polishing to the internals. The underside of this butterfly clasp is some of the best I've seen in the mid-tier. No sharp edges to the flanks. The corners of the centre section don't have any sharp corners. They've been deburred very well. So this is beneficial because they don't scratch the wrist. They don't feel rough. They don't feel sharp. The flanks are deburred and chamfered. Nice bevels. Even on the flanks of the internals, mirror polishing on every portion, inner portion, outer portion. Mirror polishing is done to a very high tier level. This is stellar. Even the 2-button push triggers are mirror polished. They feel perfectly smooth, no sharp edges, no sharp corners. It's a fantastic butterfly clasp. I'm very impressed with it. So, let's check the screw down crown execution. Now, again, I want to give due credit to DWISS here because what we're looking at here is correct decision after correct decision. We're not looking at production cost cutting measure after production cost cutting measure. We're not looking at mistake after mistake. Because, strictly speaking, this is a daily wear piece which could potentially be worn as a dress piece. Therefore, one doesn't need a screw down crown and 100 metres. Strictly speaking, this could have a 50 metre hermetic seal and a push-pull crown, and that would suffice for a daily wear or dress piece. They haven't done that. They've taken the more expensive option of using a screw down crown with 100 metres, which of course is very strong specification because we're not looking at a dive piece here. This is a daily wear piece. Octagonal crown is good because octagonal crown complements the octagonal case so that we've got good continuity of design. Often mid-tier brands and mid-tier microbrands make the mistake of using, for example, a circular crown. They'll use a knurled crown, gear tooth crown, alternatively coin edge crown, which is circular, versus an octagonal crown with a Gerald Genter inspired case like this, which is octagonal, as per the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, for example. an octagonal crown does match, because octagonal case should have an octagonal crown. Also very good attention to detail, because on the corners they're not just squared off, they've actually got ribs on each of the octagon corners, and this does make it look more aesthetically pleasing. But the other benefit of the ribs on the corners is it means it feels very smooth and comfortable. It doesn't dig into the index finger and thumb, so it looks good and feels good, but it's very well finished. Beautiful luster to it. So large chamfer, which deletes the sharp corners of the ribbed edges to the octagonal crown, and it's also embossed rather than debossed or engraved with a DWISS shield emblem, which is mirror polished to a good standard. High definition shield. Let's test the execution. Silky smooth. This is sublime screw down crown execution. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. Minimal number of turns required. This feels fantastic. It is silky smooth. They could not improve upon this. It is stellar. So, when it's fully unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the legibility caliber LJP G100 automatic. Now, the thing to note is the LJP G100 comes in 3 grades, which I'll detail: standard grade, Soin grade, and Soin DWISS Blues. This uses the Soin DWISS Blues, which is the top grade. So, feels very smooth to manually wind. To put this into perspective, it feels smoother than manually winding a Solita caliber SW200-1, Soprod caliber P024, or an ETA 2824-2 respectively. I like the smoothness of it. Feels very refined, very smooth. One can feel the tension gradually building up in the mainspring to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. Excellent. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication. So, if you look at the frame date window, you can see both the single and the double Arabic numerals align correctly. They're not too high or too low in the date window, and they're not too far to the left or the right. They're bang on the centre. The font is high definition and crisp. What I like about the font is it's sharp and crisp. It's not too thick and blurry. The black Arabic numerals contrast very well with the white date wheel. The other thing I like about it is, as I've detailed, the framing isn't too deep and it's not too thick, and one has to be mindful this is a textured tapisserie dial, as per the tapisserie dial used on the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. But the framing isn't too deep, and therefore we don't have a permanent shadow cast around the aperture. So, excellent. Legibility of this date complication is stellar. Pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement, so we're now in the time setting position, so therefore it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with a caliber LJP G100. Feels very smooth. In terms of smoothness, this feels more smooth, more refined than an SW200-1, P024 and an ETA 2824-2. Light resistance to it. It doesn't feel rough or gritty, doesn't feel stiff as per a PT5000. I like the smoothness of it. It really does feel like a very refined caliber. And the other thing I like about it is when you rotate the octagonal crown, there's an almost immediate response to the baton minute hand. You don't need to take up a lot of slack. So the meshing of the gearing feels very precise. The cutting of the teeth feels precise. The meshing feels precise. In terms of slack or backplay, it's less than an SW200-1, which you may be familiar with. And I really like that refinement. Feels very good, very responsive. Now, I have to clarify something. There is a mechanical need for backplay in gearing of the winding gears. The reason why there is a necessity for some backplay in the gearing is because if it didn't have any backplay, if the meshing of the teeth perfectly meshed without any backplay, if it was perfectly tight, when you push back in the crown, it would cause the winding gears to jump out of position, and that would cause the baton minute hand to jump out of position rather than remaining static as it should do. So there is a mechanical need or necessity for some backplay in the meshing of the teeth. They do have bevels machined on them, but this is minimalised, so it's good. It's very refined. That's the point I'm making. So we're now in the time setting position. Feels smooth both clockwise and anti-clockwise when you cycle through the 12 hours. Absolutely pleasure to set the time. Very smooth, very refined. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. The second hand begins to sweep around the dial at the characteristic 4 Hz smooth sweep. This is something I like, and you'll know this from my previous reviews. The smooth sweep of a 4 Hz movement running at 28,800 vibrations per hour versus the stutter or judder of a 3 Hz sweep, such as the NH35A, because it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour respectively. So this has a very nice smooth sweep, rather like the SW200-1. Very smooth. Time setting works well, hacking works well, hand winding works well. Let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup. There's a perfect interface, perfect mating, perfect pickup between the internal thread of the octagonal stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. This is sublime. Silky smooth screw down crown execution. Build quality, quality control, materials, finishing. are stellar. Again, this is the benefit of DWISS watches being made in Switzerland versus made in China, because the quality control level is higher, and that adds value to the piece. Fantastic screw down crown, and I'm pleased to see 100 metres with screw down crown versus the cost cutting measure of 50 metres and a push pull crown, which would have sufficed. So let's look at the case back in detail. Screw down exhibition case back glazed with sapphire crystal. Now, what I like about it is the case back has milled slots and matte bead blasted background to the milled slots, and then they've engraved with correct specification. We've got Swiss made 1080M, which denotes 100 metres, automatic, and as I've detailed, this A1-Blue is a limited edition, and we've got limited edition engraved, and this is number 143 of 500 numbered limited edition pieces. So 143 of 500, excellent. Quality of the mirror polishing to the circumference is stellar. No sharp edges to the milled slots whatsoever. Very aesthetically pleasing, also finished to high tier level. What I like about it is it's low profile and flat. This is beneficial because it allows the piece to be thin. This piece is only 10.8 millimeters, which is very impressive for an automatic with an exhibition case back of 100 meters. But this enhances comfort level and feel good factor. We're not looking at a deep bubble back case back. So to clarify, if this were powered by an SW200-1, that's a thicker caliber and it needs more clearance around the rotor between the sapphire crystal in the exhibition case back and the rotor to prevent the rotor fouling the crystal on the underside. The benefit of this being powered by the LJP G100 automatic, it's a thinner caliber, therefore the rotor is flatter and therefore requires less clearance between the underside of the sapphire crystal glazing. So they can sit the sapphire crystal closer to the rotor without it fouling, and this makes the case back very thin despite not being 50 metres and a pressed on case back. It is a screw down case back with 100 metres. Stellar. The other thing I like about it is large diameter proportion to the sapphire crystal glazing, because this fully displays the movements. Now, to clarify, the movement here is available in 3 grades. The LJP G100 is available in standard grade, Soin grade and Soin DWISS Blues. This is the top grade. This is the Soin DWISS Blues. Excellent. Also, the rotor is signed with the DWISS emblem, which is excellent, and we've got 24 jewels Swiss made. So it's a decorated movement with Cotes de Genève or Geneva stripes on the main plate, and of course we've got the same milled stripes or Cotes de Genève on the rotor, which matches. Fantastic. Excellent. Pleased to see the correct choice of using an exhibition case back. For example, they could have used the production cost cutting measure of using a solid stainless steel case back. That would of course reduce production costs per piece and therefore maximise profit margin per piece, but the exhibition case back does a good job of displaying the calibre. So it's low profile and flat. Comfort level and feel good factor are maximised. Now, with regards to the octagonal case, the underside is longitudinally brushed satin finish to a beautiful lustre, large mirror polished bevels on the undercuts to the flanks, as I've detailed. That enhances comfort level. There's no sharp corners to the octagonal case, and also the tips of the lugs are curved, and this deburrs them, so there's no sharp corners. This is good. This case does not scratch the wrist. Now, subjectively, one could be critical of the use of standard stainless steel spring bars. I'd like to see DWISS upgrade this or update the spring bars to quick release stainless steel spring bars, because that would make it easier to exchange the integrated bracelet for an alternative strap. The other thing I'd like to see them introduce is alternative straps, such as FKM floor rubber straps or alternatively leather straps, which could be fitted as an alternative to the integrated bracelet, because this does have a rather unusual 18.3mm internal lug width. 18.3 for an integrated lug isn't that common, and therefore that does limit one's strap options. So I'd like to see DWISS produce some straps in both leather and also FKM floor rubber as alternatives, and if they included that with the bracelet, that would further enhance the piece. Quick release stainless steel spring bars would be beneficial, but standard stainless steel spring bars are okay. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist, so just bear with me. I'm going to remove my Concord 40. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and I'm pleased to report that this bracelet is long. So I can easily slide an index finger beneath the bracelet and butterfly clasp at all times. This indicates this will fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist easily. So I haven't sized it. There are enough removable links on both the 6 and the 12 o'clock side of the bracelet to size this down to a minimum 6-inch wrist size up to a maximum 8.5, as you can see. Now, the negative of this being a butterfly clasp piece on the integrated Y-link bracelet, and this applies to all integrated bracelets. So I'm not just levelling criticism at DWISS here, this applies to a plethora of integrated bracelets, H-link bracelets and also Y-link bracelets like this. There is no micro adjustment on the butterfly clasp, that's just something one has to live with. They could further enhance this piece if they added a half link to the 6 side and a half link on the 12 o'clock side of the bracelets. For example, a half Y link and a half Y link. That would be beneficial because sometimes adding or subtracting one full link from an integrated bracelet doesn't give the desired fit. The bracelet feels slightly too tight or too loose. The other problem with butterfly clasp integrated bracelets is when one is active or in warmer weather and the wrist swells up, the bracelet becomes tighter if it's been sized correctly. And the problem is you don't have on-the-fly adjustment as per a ratcheting mechanism or alternatively glide lock style clasp, for example. So in the absence of micro adjustment, a half link on the 6 and a half link on the 12 o'clock side would be beneficial. The other benefit is when you're sizing a bracelet, if you remove one full link from a 6 side or one full link from the 12 side, the butterfly clasp triggers then sit off centre, either too far to the 6 or too far to the 12 side respectively. But if you need to remove one full link, having a half link on one side and a half link on the other side means you can keep the clasp centralised on the wrist, which of course looks more aesthetically pleasing and it of course benefits the comfort level and feel good factor. But on a positive note, what I like about it is curvature, stellar. This is not a bulky butterfly clasp. This is refined. Curvature is good. On my large 8-inch wrist, you can see it wraps around the wrist very well. It's a fluid bracelet, but the point I'm making is the internal portions of it, you can see they're not too thick. And this is good because the curvature is good. This centre section, as you can see, curves around the wrist very well, but it's a very snug fit. You can see we don't have a large gap underneath it. That's the point I'm making. Often with low-tier micro brands and low-tier brands, they make this portion, the centre section, like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel, and it's like a block. It's very rectangular, very flat and far too thick. And it doesn't have enough curvature, particularly for collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches. It will always have overhang, and also even on larger wrists it's far too thick and bulky. And when the clasp is closed, therefore it's too bulky on the wrist. It sticks out too proud. So if you look at this one, curvature is fantastic on my large 8-inch wrist because you can see it sits very snug to the wrist. The curvature is good. This also applies for a 6 to 7-inch wrist. It curves around the wrist very well, and they've got this refined, and these are the fundamentals that DWISS have got right. What we're looking at is correct decision after correct decision, and so many low tier and mid-tier brands get this incorrect, and also the same applies to low-tier micro brands and mid-tier micro brands. They get the fundamentals incorrect. They make these butterfly clasps, the internals, the centre section far too bulky. This does not have that problem. Curvature is low profile, luster is good, visually looks good, no sharp edges, doesn't pull arm hairs. It's a very good butterfly clasp. So, wrist presence is good. 40mm is enough to satisfy. Now, the thing I will say is, this is clearly best suited to collectors with a 7 to 8-inch wrist, because 40 does have wrist presence, and of course it does have an octagonal brutalist case shape, rather like a Gerald Genta design as per the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. So yes, it does wear with wrist presence, but what I like about it is two things. The thickness. This is only 10.8mm. Now just think about this for a moment. We're all familiar with integrated pieces, with Gerald Genta style, Audemars Piguet Royal Oak style cases, octagonal cases with brutalist lugs. They're often like a thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel. They sit on top of the wrist rather than wrapping around the wrist as per a tonneau case, which is curved. But this piece is very thin. 10.8 really impresses me. Now, as I've detailed, correct decision after correct decision. Had DWISS taken the less expensive default option of the SW200-1, which is a thicker calibre, this piece would be 12.5 to 13mm thick. Because bear in mind, this is not 50 metres with a thinner sapphire crystal. It has an exhibition case back which is sapphire crystal glazed. That adds some thickness. The sapphire crystal in the front also needs to be thicker because it's 100 metres, not 50. But despite that, having a thicker sapphire crystal in the front and a thicker sapphire crystal in the exhibition case back, we're not looking at 12.5 or 13 here. This is only 10.8. 10.8 is the kind of thickness I would expect with a quartz powered or a mechanical manual wind movement piece, not an automatic with a rotor. If this were SW200-1, it would be 12.5 to 13, make no mistake about it. So, 40mm does give wrist presence, does have a feeling of heft, but the thing I like is low profile at 10.8. Needless to say, you'll know this from my previous reviews, 13mm and below is the sweet spot. So, A 13 or below piece will easily slip underneath the shirt cuff if you wear business shirts, therefore it's practical for a daily wear piece. At 10.8, this is well below the 13 sweet spot. We're not looking at 11 or 12 or 13. 10.8 is fantastic. The kind of thickness one would expect with a quartz-powered or mechanical manual wind piece, not an automatic with a rotor. The other thing I like about this piece, above all else, as I've detailed, is the slender Rehaut. And again, this is the benefit. They've maximised the benefit of using the caliber LJPG 100 automatic versus the less expensive default option of the SW200-1, which is a thicker caliber. Because slender Rehaut. Sapphire crystal sits closer to the tapisserie dial, sits closer to the cannon pinion and handset. So visually the Rehaut makes the piece look thinner than it actually is, aesthetically pleasing. The sapphire crystal gives perfect clarity to the tapisserie dial. But the other benefit is, overall, the case looks very slender. This is a very thin, low-profile piece. Now, the negative is, subjectively, this does have some serious heft. It is 165 grams. So, you'll know this from my previous reviews. 150 grams and below is the perfect sweet spot for a piece to give a feeling of quality and heft to satisfy, but not being too heavy or top heavy to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. At 165 grams, this is 15 grams in excess of the 150 sweet spot for a 40mm on an integrated bracelet, but I'm not going to be critical of it. So why is that? Well, as I've detailed, this does have a very long bracelet. Even on my 8-inch wrist, it's loose. I can easily slide an index finger beneath it, as you can see. So even I would remove 2 to 4 links. If you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist, you're going to be removing 4 to 6 links. Even if you have a 7 to 8-inch wrist, you're going to be removing 4 links. So if you remove, say, 4 links from this bracelet, it will reduce it by circa 15 grams and bring it down to the perfect sweet spot of 150 grams respectively. And if you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist and you remove 6 links, you're going to be well below the 150 gram sweet spot. That will drop it down to circa 135 to 140 grams respectively. So I'm not going to be critical of the 165 gram heft due to it having a very long bracelet. If I size this correctly for my 8-inch wrist, this would drop it down to circa 155 grams, which is only marginally above the 150 sweet spot. So yes, it does have heft, but not too much heft if you size the bracelet to fit a smaller wrist. So, head of the piece is correctly proportioned. Feel good factor of this piece is 10 out of 10. Comfort level is 10 out of 10. What I like about it is it's balanced, above all else. We're all familiar with Chinese-made, low-tier and mid-tier integrated bracelet pieces with a thick slab head of the piece, like a block of 316L grade stainless steel. And then they compound that by a very thick, wide, flared bracelet with too much meat on it and a very bulky, thick clasp. All of that adds heft and diminishes comfort level and diminishes comfort and feel-good factor. This feels very well balanced, and it's a fundamental that's very difficult to perfect with an integrated bracelet piece like this, with an octagonal brutalist case, which is gentler design. But the integrated bracelet has the correct flare on it. It's an aggressive taper. You'll know this from my previous reviews. There are 2 industry standards which I often refer to. The Perfection Personified 20 to 16 taper, and also the other alternative is 22 to 18. But, however, it is acceptable to have a more aggressive taper, a flared bracelet like this with a wider taper from 24.3 down to 20, because this does have an octagonal case. It does need extra meat on the bracelet. For example, had they used a 20 to 16 taper or a 22 to 18, that would not have enough meat on the bracelet. The bracelet would feel too light, and visually it would look too slender for the octagonal case with the brutalist lugs. I think in this case it's correct. 24.3 down to 20 is a very aggressive taper. So the meat on the bracelet is deleted. As you can see, very wide and flared at the head of the piece, but then aggressively tapers down. And when we get down to the butterfly clasp, it's only 20. This is just the right amount of meat on the butterfly clasp. And as you can see, as I've detailed, it's low profile. It's not too thick. It's good. Luster is beautiful. The Y-Link bracelet is just mesmerising. Just look at the luster of it. The way it catches the light is just mesmerising. Nice fine-grained satin finishing. And again, this is the refinement one gets with a Swiss-made piece. Chinese-made pieces cannot deliver this because they often have very rough, coarse satin finishing. The luster is not fine. This is fine-grained satin finishing. It's rather like Rolex, Tudor or Omega level. That's the level of luster we're talking about. Nice fine-grained longitudinal brushed satin finishing to every single one of the Y-links. And as I've detailed, the centre sections have nice mirror-polished facets, and the bevels to the outer sections of the Y-links are mirror polished. This is an incredibly well finished bracelet. When it floats up and down the wrist, it doesn't scratch the wrist, it's not sharp on the undercuts to the flanks, doesn't catch the arm hairs, doesn't pull arm hairs. This is comfortable, so looks good and feels good. Low profile at 10.8, and yes, it does have heft at 165 grams, but proportions of the clasp are good. Luster is absolutely mesmerising. This is fantastic. For a mid-tier piece, this does give the feeling of a high-tier piece between 5,000 and 5,000 plus. This is mid-tier between 500 and 5,000 euro at 1,429, but it really does give the feeling of a high-tier piece at 10,000 plus euro level. That's the quality we're looking at. Finishing is stellar. Blue tapisserie dial is very aesthetically pleasing, and I really like the quality of the luster throughout, to the head of the piece and also the bracelet and the clasp. Beautiful. So comfort level and feel good factor is both 10 out of 10. So just bear with me, I'm going to put back on my Concord 40 and then I'll continue and we'll do a lume test. So this uses C1-X1-BL Superlume Nova blocks on the dial as opposed to applied indices, and also on the handset it's got blocks of C1-X1-BL Superlume Nova as an alternative to the industry standards, which are BGW9 and C3 Superlume Nova, which you're all familiar with. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge this up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This is incredible, stellar performance. So we're not looking at applied indices, which are infilled with 5 to 6 layers. We are looking at blocks of Superlume Nova. Even on the handset, we're not looking at 5 to 6 layers of Lume applied. This is blocks of Lume. And even around the date complication, they have framed it with blocks of, well, a block frame. And you can see this is far in excess of the performance of 5 to 6 layers of C3 Superlume Nova or BGW9. It's fantastic. Good even application. As you can see, the blocks as alternatives to applied indices perfectly match. In daylights, they're perfectly white on the blocks on the dial and also the handset, and even on the framing around the date complication. And in the dark, they've got a perfect blue colour tone match. Visually, it does look very similar to BGW9, but to clarify, it's slightly lighter. So the C1-X1-BL has more potency to the exciter. It's whiter. So initially it has a brighter light blue to it when it's charged, as you can see. This is a lighter blue than BGW9, although it's subtle. And of course the C1 adds potency to it, and I really like it. C1 is whiter than BGW9, and by mixing the C1 with X1, you get this potency, longevity, and also the benefit of bright blue. So it really is the perfect combination, C1-X1-BL. And using the blocks is just fantastic. The other thing I like is when you tilt it at an oblique angle, you get this nice 3D effect to the blocks on the tapisserie dial. So rather than just applied indices which are silver and mirror polished, and then you have inside 5 to 6 layers, when you tilt it at an oblique angle, you get this 3D block-like effect. So it's very interesting. Even on the handset, they've got these blocks of Superlume Nova rather than just being infilled. So it's very good. But you can see the performance is stellar. And although it's an asymmetrical dial, because we have a date complication, they've managed to fit in an index to the right of the date window, which is framed. And it's good because symmetry is good, even though it's asymmetrical versus symmetrical. The legibility is good. And I like the proportions of the blocks as opposed to applied indices. It's fantastic. Potency is good. Colour tone match is good. And it makes a refreshing change, because often mid-tier brands will simply use the default option of applied indices and then 5 to 6 layers on the applied indices and 5 to 6 layers on the baton hands. And one has to appreciate the negative of baton hands with daily wear pieces like this. They don't allow for a large area or large plots of C3 or BGW9 to be applied, or in this case C1-X1-BL to be applied, because they're not as wide. Baton hands are more slender. But what they've done with this is they've made the baton hands wide, and wide enough to take blocks of the Superlume Nova. And you can see the benefits. This is far in excess of the performance of 5 to 6. This is some of the best performance I've seen. It's just fantastic. And the good thing about it is one can immediately differentiate between the broader, shorter hour hand and the longer, more slender baton minute hand. So you can easily differentiate between the two. Fantastic performance. And nice attention to detail. they framed the date complication, which isn't necessary, but it does add interest to it, and I think they deserve full credit. No production cost-cutting measure whatsoever. This is clearly very top quality Swiss Super Lume Nova. Right, so let's discuss the movement use because it's my favourite aspect of the piece. Now, to remind you, 3 years ago, I reviewed the legibility caliber LJP G100 automatic, the movement itself. I've also previously reviewed other pieces which are powered by the LJP G100, such as the Bremont Supermarine and also the Flux Quadris. Now, the Flux Quadris, strictly speaking, is powered by the LJP G101, which is the no-date version of the G100, but the architecture is identical. It's just the no-date version. So, I've reviewed the movements, and I've also reviewed 2 pieces with the movement. However, in all 3 cases, they were standard grade. So to remind you, the legibility caliber LJP G100 automatic is available in 3 grades: standard grade, Soin grade, and Soin DWISS Blues. So, Soin DWISS Blues is the top grade used in this version, used in this piece. Now, I'll explain what the difference is. Standard grade is undecorated. There are no Cotes de Genève or milled stripes on the main plate or the rotor. Soin grade is decorated with Cotes de Genève or Geneva stripes on the main plate and rotor, and Soin DWISS Blues is decorated with Cotes de Genève on the main plate and rotor, but also blued screws. So what we're looking at here, you can clearly see the 3 blued screws in the rotor and also on the bridges and main plate. You can also see the milled stripes, which are Cotes de Genève on the main plate, and that matches the Cotes de Genève milled stripes on the rotor. So this is the top grade. To put this into perspective, the Soin DWISS Blues grade is equal to an Elaboré chronometer or top grade SW200-1, P024 or ETA 2824-2. It is the very best of legibility. You'll know from my previous reviews, the LJP G100 automatic is one of my personal favourite calibers, and I'll explain why. So, Soin DWISS Blues grade, which is the top grade, 24 joules, has 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. Nice smooth sweep to the second hand. Hand winding and hacking works well. Quick set date complication works well. And manual winding works well. The thing I like about this movement is it has a tungsten rotor. This is something the SW200-1, the P024 and the ETA 2824-2 do not have. Why do I like a tungsten rotor? Tungsten is the heaviest naturally occurring metal, so it's particularly suitable for an oscillating weight such as this rotor. The benefit of it being very heavy, the tungsten spins round, as you can see, very freely with some heft to it. So it's very beneficial. It's the ideal material. A tungsten rotor is the ideal material for an automatic like this. It spins round very freely due to its heft, because it's the heaviest naturally occurring metal. And it's something one doesn't see on the SW100-1, the P024 and the ETA 2824-2. That's why I think the LJP G100 is a level above the aforementioned. So, as I've detailed, 2 differences: standard grade and Soin DWISS Blues. Now, standard grade is accurate to plus or minus 12 seconds per day because it's regulated in 3 positions. Soin grade and Soin DWISS Blue grade, used in this piece, is regulated to 4 positions, to plus or minus 7. So standard is plus or minus 12, Soin grade is plus or minus 7. This is more accurate. I want to give due credit and bring it to your attention that DWISS haven't used the less expensive option of the standard grade here. We're looking at Soin DWISS Blue grade, which is the top grade. So, for example, they could have cut production costs by using the standard grade, which is plus or minus 12, because it's only regulated in 3 positions. That would have reduced production costs per piece and therefore maximised profit margin per piece, but they didn't do that. They didn't just take the Soin grade option, they took the Soin DWISS Blue option, which is the top grade. So it's regulated in 4 positions to plus or minus 7. It's the most expensive legibility option for the LJP G100. Stellar. Plus or minus 7 seconds per day regulated in 4 positions is fantastic, but I can confirm this one is running better than that. This one is actually running at plus 2 seconds per day. Plus 2 is well within the stated plus or minus 7 for Soin grade DWISS Blues, but it's actually chronometer accurate. Chronometer accuracy is minus 4 to plus 6. So plus 2 from an LJP G100 is nothing unusual for the Soin DWISS Blues grade, but stellar nonetheless. Chronometer accurate. Are there any negatives to it? None whatsoever. It's one of my personal favourites, and to remind you, the thing I really like about it is how thin it is, because it is significantly thinner than the SW200-1, the P024 and the ETA 2824-2. Now the benefit of that is one can have a slimmer Rehaut, therefore the sapphire crystal sits closer to the handset and the tapisserie dial and the date complication. So slender Rehaut is one benefit, and overall the benefit is this piece can be slimmed down to only 10.8mm, which is just fantastic. So if this were powered by the SW200-1, it would be 12.5 to 13 thick because it's exhibition case back plus 100 meters. We're not looking at a solid case back with 50 meters, for example. And of course the SW200-1 would need a deeper Rehaut because of the taller hand stack height on the cannon pinion. So these are all the reasons. It's just fantastic reason after fantastic reason why the LJPG 100 is a superior caliber. It's a level above the SW200-1, and I'm talking about the Elaboré grade, top grade or chronometer grades, the very best of Solita. It's a level above. The decoration of the milled stripes or coats de Genève on the main plate add interest. They also match the milled stripes or coats de Genève on the rotor, which is tungsten, and also good attention to detail. And again, I want to give credit to DWISS here because they haven't just used the sterile version of the legibility rotor here in tungsten. They've actually engraved it with the DWISS shield to add interest to it. They could have used the production cost cutting measure of just using the standard sterile rotor, but they didn't. They signed it. So, looks good. Blued screws add interest, and I think it's a fantastic movement, both in terms of build quality, quality control, materials and finishing, accuracy, reliability is well proven. Very good quality movement, a level above the Elaboré grade SW200-1, Elaboré grade P024 and the Elaboré grade ETA 2824-2 respectively. It is the perfect choice for this. If this were powered by the SW200-1, that would have been acceptable for a Swiss-made piece at 1,429. But they've taken the more expensive option, not the standard grade, not the Soin grade. They've taken the Soin DWISS Blues grade option, the very best of legibility. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So mid-tier piece, mid-tier is 500 to 5,000 euro. This is 1,429 within the mid-tier. Yes, this is unquestionably excellent quality, and yes, it is unquestionably excellent value. 2 years of warranty adds value to the piece. Blocks of C1X1BL Super Lume Nova on the tapisserie dial and the handset add value to the piece. Stellar performance. The other thing, above all else, which justifies the price point as excellent quality and excellent value, is the Soin DWISS Blues legibility caliber LJPG 100, the top grade, plus or minus 7 seconds per day, 4 positions regulation. This is running at +2. Swiss-made piece, made in Lugano, Switzerland, with a Swiss-made caliber, the legibility LJPG 100, one of my personal favourites. This is a fantastic piece. Build quality, quality control, materials, finishing are stellar. No QC issues whatsoever. The quality control of this piece is Swiss level. It really is a Swiss-made, high-tier level piece at a mid-tier price point, €1,429. So I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the DWISS A1-Blue. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.